everybody, it's Charlie from Daily Motor. Today we're out here driving the 2021 BMW 4 Series. Specifically, this is the 430 xDrive. So we're rocking all-wheel drive and the 2-liter turbocharged BMW engine. We are out here in the beautiful winding roads of the greater Denver area out in Colorado. We've been out here before with the McLaren 570S. So still a blue car, but a little bit less exciting than that one, admittedly. But it's still windy, it's still cold. You can see a bunch of snow around us here. And we're out here with my good buddy, Ben. You may have seen him if you watch some of the winding road videos. He's been recording for them quite a bit. And he's out here with a little bit more of an exciting car. So the rental he got off of Turo. This is a, did you say 2007 or 2008?
2008.
2008 Porsche 911. Just nice base manual Carrera. And what, about 100,000 miles on it?
It's close. I think it's 96,000.
Okay.
Perfect amount of power though.
Yeah?
Feels like to me.
Good. Well, being able to row your own and do these magnificent roads with excellent steering, great balance, and probably a great soundtrack as well.
Oh yeah.
Cool. So Ben is actually going to do a video as well on this car. He's going to kind of talk about some of the driving impressions and having it out on these wonderful roads. But Ben, you've got a pretty good car portfolio as well. You've had an S2000, you had a Honda Fit for a long time.
Definitely in the JDM side of things. But,
right. But you grew up right around the tail of the dragon. That was practically your playground growing up.
About 30 minutes away from there is where I grew up. So
yeah.
I was up there quite a few weekends.
I bet. So definitely a great area to get experienced with car culture and all the good driving experiences. So Ben's going to be doing more and more videos for us, but if you want to see more on this 911 or want to see more from him, take a search for that. That'll probably be up sometime around the same time as this video. We'll get them both up there. So coming back over here to the BMW, you can see that everything else looks great about it. I mean, you got these nice smoked lights, these beautiful proportions, and of course a great amount of wind that's going to drown out anything I say out here. But we are running on Pirelli Soto Zero winter tires. That's going to add a little bit of tire squeal and take away from the limits a bit of this car. But let's get behind the wheel and talk about what it's like to drive. Now, it's going to be a bit of an exercise not to be too harsh on this thing, but it really does feel like BMW has been sleeping on its cars recently. I mean, don't get me wrong, they've got excellent powertrains, excellent transmissions, and the chassis is good as well. Everything in here makes sense and it's comfortable, but man, does this feel so much more like just an easy highway cruiser, non-car enthusiast sort of car than ever before. And it's strange because BMW SUVs have been really great to drive from a car enthusiast perspective as of late. So let's get out on the road and talk about what it's been like to be behind the wheel of this thing. You do have wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, which I think is a huge development, especially getting into a car that I hadn't driven yet in an area that I wasn't particularly familiar with. It was so nice to be able to just pair my phone up and all of a sudden have my Google Maps, everything brought right up, which we're not seeing any of right now because there's no signal up here in the mountains. But if you had your maps downloaded, you'd be good to go. There's definitely enough power coming out of this 2-liter. I love BMW's 2-liter, don't get me wrong. I think it's a really versatile engine, and there are certain cars that I'd be like, yeah, why do you need to pay for anything else? But when you're dealing with a little bit larger car like this, the 4 Series, and you're trying to really wring it out and flex it on these mountain roads, you do kind of feel like you need to have more power, more grunt. This thing is really getting wrung out, and it's so subtle and smooth that you just don't really get much sensation. Fortunately, this ZF 8-speed is excellent. Very quick shifts. You can do it yourself, or you can leave it in S mode. Still be in pretty good shape. But listen to that. I mean, that's sport mode. You're really not hearing much. This car is all about isolation. Also interesting that if you go down through the kickdown pedal, there's a little kickdown button, even if you're in manual mode, it will downshift. So I suppose that's kind of nice. Load it up a little bit. One thing I do love about driving BMW Sport and Lee is having their dynamic traction control, so you can kind of have a little bit of fun without worrying about putting yourself in the ditch. Drop the steering wheel just a tad so I can see that nice little gray outline road map in front of us. Brake feels pretty good. A little vague, actually. It's kind of just like, yeah, it stops the car. I haven't had any problem left foot braking, though. Of course, as soon as we get into any sort of semblance of corners, we've got a Nissan Altima going below the speed limit. Oh, turning, okay. All right. Appreciate that. If you've watched many reviews on any modern BMW, hopefully they tell you that steering feel is woeful, because that's certainly the case with this thing. My colleague Chris once described BMW steering as woolly, and I think that's a good way to put it. But I think vague is another good way. The Harman Kardon Sound-system is okay. It does require a lot of tuning to get to a spot that it sounds good for more dynamic kinds of music. However, there is a full-fledged, I think it's like 7-channel or so equalizer, might even be a 10-channel. So you can tweak it to get it pretty darn good, but with factory settings, it's not the most impressive. It'll probably come out to be fairly similar to the 3 Series Harman Kardon that I tested, which makes sense. So, definitely an interesting car. It'll be good to spend a little bit more time, but I could definitely see this car being good for somebody who wants a BMW, who wants that image and that really the luxury experience, but doesn't care too much about driving. Maybe it's because this thing's on winter tires. Maybe it's because it's the all-wheel drive model. It's only the 2-liter. But I've read other reviews about the 4 Series in general. It's just not a driver's car anymore. So, just make sure you test drive one if you're interested and kind of look into what you're getting. I'm sure if you got something more powerful or something like the M4, it'd be a much, much more exciting vehicle. But when you're talking base trim like this, that's probably about, it's not really going to be for the enthusiast. Yesterday, I recorded a video on this 2021 BMW 430i Coupe. And I decided I was too harsh on the car. So we're going to get back behind the wheel. We're going to talk about what makes this car good. We're going to ignore the big front grille because the jury still seems to be out on that one. We're going to ignore the all-wheel drive and talk about this car as a road tripper. Talk about it as a grand touring car and kind of more of a budget grand touring car if you kind of consider some of the options. So let's hop right on in and get going. Coming in at $60,520 as built. We've got the M Sport package, the dynamic handling package, the premium package, a whole bunch of other goodies built on into there. 255 horsepower and 290 something pound-feet of torque. Now it does have to work pretty hard to move this thing. Weighs probably, with all-wheel drive and everything like that, something right around 3,800 pounds. And obviously turning all-wheel drive, it's going to use up a little bit more energy as well. But one of the best things I've noticed, and in fact I noticed it as soon as I got in this car, is how gosh darn quiet it is. It's very quiet. The suspension is very forgiving, compliant over all different sorts of roads. A canyon carver, this car is not. Ultimate driving machine, up for debate. But what it does do really well is eat away at the miles. I've done 279 miles today, cruising through pretty much any random mountain pass that looks interesting in little towns like this. Just experiencing what these roads have to offer and experiencing the mountain passes of Colorado. I went around Vail and down toward Leadville and even further down around by Buena Vista and Fairplay and up back into Denver that direction. So it's been a beautiful, beautiful drive. Perfect day for it. And while I can't say that I've bonded with the 4 Series, doesn't provide enough character to really provide a bonding experience as some cars do. It has been perfectly acceptable. It's been remarkably efficient. I've taken no ease on the gas pedal, and we've averaged today 31.5 miles per gallon according to the trip readout. It's had plenty of power to pull me well over the speed limit on all different sorts of roads. And then when I don't feel like driving fast, just calm right down, put it into comfort mode, and cruise along. It's easy to tear this car apart for what it isn't. But by doing that, you look over what it is. It's a comfortable and classy cruiser for someone looking for that luxury image and luxury experience without breaking the bank and stepping up to some of the big boy cars that the German and Japanese brands offer. Like the 8 Series and the S Coupes and what else? Pretty much Mercedes makes a coupe out of everything these days, but SL or something like an LC 500. 430 is a notch below that, and it's something more like a Lexus RC 350. And I'll tell you one thing, I'd definitely rather be in this than the RC. I will say, unless you do live in a snowy climate and plan on really putting the all-wheel drive to work, I certainly wouldn't recommend buying it. Just save a little bit of money, save a little efficiency, and wait and get yourself the rear-wheel drive. You can still put snow tires on there and be perfectly capable in some snowy conditions, but you'd have to really be putting this thing to work regularly on snowy surfaces to justify all-wheel drive. I have had some issues with the wireless device charger. You have to get the phone just right in there, and when you're driving around these back and forth mountain-style roads, the phone slides around and then stops wireless charging. So I have resorted to just plugging it in. I've also had a few connection issues. There was one point where Android Auto was totally working, but when I went to play audio, it was going through my phone, both navigation and media. There was a different time where Android Auto was working and the audio was playing through the car speakers, but anytime I turned the volume knob, it would only adjust navigation volume. It wouldn't change the media volume, so I had to restart the car. There was another time where Android Auto just wasn't coming up. The phone thought it was connected, but the car had no way of bringing it up, so I had to disconnect the phone, reconnect it, and then it started working. The base 4 Series is not a car for the enthusiast. I'm sorry to say it, but it's not providing that driving feel. I'd be remiss to go through the entire review without at least mentioning the steering feel and the extreme lack of it. But BMW is confident that their intended buyer doesn't want to feel the road through the steering wheel. They don't want that very twitchy, direct, light feeling. So, if they have their target market nailed down and that's what they want, then okay, so be it. This car is definitely more luxury cruiser grand tourer than sports car. So as long as you're buying it knowing that and being in the market for that kind of car, very good option here from BMW. And hey, for you sports car enthusiasts, there's always the M cars. So thank you all so much for watching. If you want to see more on this 430i, we're going to do a sound system test on this Harman Kardon audio system. Just check the link in the description if you want to see that. And thank you to BMW for letting us spend a beautiful few days behind the wheel of this 430i. And we'll see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from Daily Motor, and as always, drive on.